Good afternoon, slash morning to everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Manny Espitia. My pronouns are he, his, him, and I will be moderating the panel on running with values. A little introduction just about me. I am a state representative out in New Hampshire, representing Hillsborough District 31, which is Nashua, probably the most diverse district in the state with the largest Latino population. And I got elected in 2018, along with this amazing panel that will be introducing themselves next. And I'm also full-time work at Run for Something as the Northern Regional Director. And Run for Something is an organization that was founded in 2017 to recruit and support young, diverse progressives for down ballot races to build a bench for the future. We lower the barriers to entry for these candidates by helping them build out our organization and get access to resources. And actually, everyone on this panel is also a Run for Something endorsed candidate. But part of the reason I love the work that I do and that I'm so invested in it is because we are working with candidates who live out their values, who campaign on them, and who are actively, once elected, actually trying to work hard to make that change, whether they're running on issues around infrastructure, issues around reproductive rights, issues around voting rights, and the environment and climate. Once elected, a lot of our candidates actually get to work and get that work done. They put in legislation, they work, build coalitions to actually get it across the finish line, which if you ever talk to anybody who's served an elected office, is probably they would say sometimes campaigning is the easy part, but actually getting a lot of the stuff done is the tougher part. So I'm really excited to dive in and talk and introduce you to the panel. So I'll go ahead and kick it off first to State Senator Emily Randall. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks so much, Manny, and thanks to everyone for joining. I'm Emily Randall, the state senator from Washington State's 26th legislative district, which for folks unfamiliar with Washington geography is a short ferry ride across the Puget Sound from Seattle on the Kitsap Peninsula, the cities of Bremerton, Port Orchard, Gig Harbor, and then the Key Peninsula. And it's the community I grew up in. I'm really proud to be representing my district. And now I serve in the Senate as Majority Whip in caucus leadership. And I also chair the Higher Education and Workforce Development Committee as a first-generation college grad. So I'm really excited to be working on policy to open doors for more people every day.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Randall. I'll go ahead and pass it to Senator Rausch.
Hello, everyone. Manny, thank you so much for hosting and moderating and for the invitation. It's such an honor to be here with my fellow women senators. We are still very much in the minority, so it's great to be on this entirely woman senator panel here. My name is Becca Rausch. I use she, her pronouns. I am the state senator from a district in Massachusetts called the Norfolk, Bristol, and Middlesex District. It's the Metro West area of Boston, spreading southward and a little bit westward. I currently represent 12 municipalities. That's shifting to 11 after redistricting takes effect with the next upcoming term. I was first elected in 2018, as Manny said earlier, in a big exciting upset election. I am the third woman, the second Democrat, and the first Jewish person ever elected to represent this district in the Senate. Very proud to be a two-time Run for Something endorsed candidate, but I think I'm now too old, which is unfortunate. And I currently serve as the Senate chair of the Joint Committee on Environment, Natural Resources, and Agriculture.
Awesome. Thank you, Senator Rausch. And now to last but certainly not least, Senator Chloe Maxmin.
Uh-oh, we have some technical difficulties.
That's it happens, but I'll go ahead and once she gets back in, I'll make sure that she'll go ahead and introduce. Oh, there we go. Senator Maxmin, you there?
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah. You want to go ahead and introduce yourself? So we'll let her figure out the technical problems, but we'll go ahead and first, I guess, once she's back and like completely online, we'll go.
Oh, okay.
You're
Thank
good?
you, Michael. My rural internet is failing me predictably. My name, I can't see anyone's face or audio, so I'll just be quick. My name is Chloe Maxmin. I'm a state senator in Maine. I was first elected in 2018, winning a Republican district that had a 16-point Republican advantage. And then in 2020, I ran for the state Senate, and we defeated the Republican leadership in the Senate, the highest ranking Republican in Maine. And here I am. Such an honor to be on this panel with all these amazing folks.
Thank you, Senator Maxmin. Great to have you. So I'm going to go ahead and just start off with some questions for the panel. So first is, what core values do you have that compelled you to consider running for office? And I'll go ahead and start with Senator Rausch.
Thanks so much. My core values are the same that I've been talking about since I first ran: justice, fairness, and intersectional equity for all, combined with meaningful service that delivers real results for the people that I'm honored to serve. And all of those are the core values that I kind of grew up with, that my parents instilled in me, that my life experiences instilled in me, and they have held true and useful in my service in the Senate in Massachusetts.
Awesome. Senator Randall, how about you?
Yeah, thank you. I ran because I believe that every person deserves access to healthcare when and where they need it, healthcare that's affordable. It was really important to me when my sister Olivia was born with complex disabilities when I was a kid, and Washington State expanded Medicaid that year, and that meant that Olivia could get the healthcare that she needed. So I've worked really hard to expand Medicaid access, postpartum Medicaid, increase subsidies, for healthcare, and ensure that more people who aren't covered get coverage. I also really believe that my job in the legislature is to remove barriers to access all sorts of opportunity. And, I mentioned I was a first-gen college grad. I had to go to college in Senator Rausch's district in order to afford it. That was where I got the best financial aid package. And I'm glad that I did, but I also think that people should be able to afford to stay home near their families, near their other obligations. And so we've been expanding financial aid in the state of Washington so that folks can use it for a 4-year degree or an apprenticeship or a certificate program. We need more opportunities for more people to build the lives that they dream of.
I love it. Senator Maxmin, how about you? I was like, no worries. You have, I was going to say, is there a way we can unmute? Oh. I was like, rural broadband people, this is why it's important. I would say for me as well, I think I come from a working class district. It was probably one of the biggest reasons, most of my, probably one of the lowest median income in the state. And so for me, it really resonated when I grew up that way. It was like, I want to represent the people the way and give them the opportunities, just like you said, represent Senator Randall, like give them the opportunity to remove barriers so that they can succeed and have a better life for themselves. So, I think that was one of the biggest, that working people deserve to have good representation and legislation that's going to actually make their lives better. So the next question I have is, how do these values actually translate, these values of growing up, translate into an actual platform? So Senator Randall, I want to go ahead.
Sure. And I touched on this a little bit when I answered the last question. Some of the policies that I worked on are around healthcare expansion. around, looking for ways that we can cover the 500,000 people that don't have coverage, meaningful coverage besides the emergency room in Washington state. And that looks like Medicaid expansion. It looks like subsidies for folks who are buying their healthcare on the exchange. It looks like trying to lower costs. It also looked like passing policy to create a state universal healthcare commission that's empowered to continue expanding Medicaid, to continue using federal dollars creatively without coming back to the legislature to pass authorizing legislation. It's been called some of the strongest universal healthcare policy in the country passed in the last decade. And I'm really proud of the work that we've been doing. The way that I communicate it with voters, especially, is storytelling. I told my story about my sister, and I share that when I talk to people at their doors. I share that when people ask me why I'm a Democrat. It's because I believe in Medicaid, because I had a personal family experience. I share it as often as possible so that my staff can all repeat the same story over and over, because I think that is how we connect with people. That's how regular voters, our neighbors, think about policy and action. It's the same way that most of us do, right? It's what made us feel this way and how do we turn it into policy. So I think those personal stories are really important.
Senator Rausch, how about you?
I couldn't agree more about the storytelling. But I'll come back to that in a second. My values, those sort of core values, really infuse every piece of my work, my broader work, and also the specific platform that I'm trying to advance. And I find that when we lead with our values of justice and equity and fairness, and you're secure and grounded in those values and in a value-based compass, if you will, it really makes the path of legislating a lot easier. Certainly none of us who ran in 2018 ran on a platform of what we would do in a global deadly pandemic. And that was not an issue that any of us were really robustly thinking about, although I was certainly working on public health. But you come back to those values every time, no matter what the issue is that's coming up. For me, my platform really developed based on my own areas of policy interest, my professional expertise prior to joining the Senate, and my personal lived experiences, which comes back to those storytelling that Senator Randall is talking about, and in fact has already shared, and Rep Espitia as well. Excuse me. For me, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the first Jewish person ever elected to represent this district. I am the granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor. I have faced gross and direct anti-Semitism all throughout my life, and combating identity-based discrimination and hatred and vitriol has been a really big part of what I do. I'm also one of only 2 senators in the entire state of Massachusetts with moms with kids under 10. So I do a lot of work on childhood, all things pertinent to families with young kids. I am a former healthcare attorney, so I worked both in the public and the private sector on healthcare. In fact, Senator Randall, we have many things to talk about. We should connect offline. So I do a lot of work on healthcare, both public health and personal health. Reproductive health and justice has been an area of interest for me for a long time. Election reform, climate action, and particularly recently, much greater focus on climate action, in part from personal experiences, like what do I do with all of my kids' former car seats that they no longer fit into and that have hit their expiration date? Oh, there's no statewide recycling program. How do I work on that? And just seeing the impacts of climate change in my district. And also the Senate president appointed me to chair the Committee on the Environment. So I'm learning a lot about, all of the multiple different things that we really need to do to protect our planet.
That's real. That's all. Oh,
yeah.
that's
I should add on the communication story, those values forward, story forward, and with the greatest amount of transparency we can possibly muster in my district in particular, and anybody who represents a purpley district. Whatever you do, sometimes you're going to make some people happy and you're going to make other people not happy. So at least for me, the best that I can do is to be transparent about what I'm doing and why. And, and the folks that are happy will be happy. And the folks that are not happy will at least hopefully be able to understand why I've done the things that I've done.
It's 100% real. Always be transparent. Always be authentic, and be real, because voters can sniff through it. They can see through it. And I would say, yeah, like the dignity of work for me was one of the biggest issues on my platform. Saying, whether it was running on raising the minimum wage, issues around paid family medical leave, and then also finally worker safety, making sure that people can feel safe when they get home, that they can go to work and come back home literally in one piece, that they don't have to worry about, risking their lives. And if they do that, if they have a job that would be, that comes with that they feel like there are programs that would support, that the state would actually do its job, do things like investigate it, which is something New Hampshire didn't do beforehand. So, I think those are some of the issues I ran on, because those are the issues that I thought were important to my constituents. So, Senator Maxmin, are you good to go?
I hope so. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I don't know what is going on with my internet today. I'm so sorry.
No worries. Well, I guess I'll start with the first question for you real quick, which is, what core values did you have and compelled you to run for office?
Oh gosh, I wish I had gotten to hear everyone else's answers. I ran for office because I really felt like I wasn't living in a representational democracy, that I was electing folks and voting for folks who really were not responsive, or even like mildly afraid of like these really powerful progressive movements that I was organizing with. And I kind of also saw how that progressive side was kind of leaving behind my rural hometown. And so I think there's the twin combination of like the values of the progressive movement that I love and hold so dear and fight for, and also some of the really beautiful values of a community, just like the sense of independence and interconnectedness all at once. I wanted to see all of that in office.
That's legit. That's amazing. So my next question for all of y'all is, now that you're in office, how have your values led your legislative priorities, specifically legislation that you've drafted or passed? So start off with Senator Randall.
Oh, sure. Thank you. So, I mentioned our Universal Healthcare Commission and postpartum Medicaid expansion. I also worked on some policy this past session around integrating apprenticeships within our higher education system better. So we're building a path such that any one who graduates from a state registered apprenticeship program, becomes a journey card holder, they'll be able to get a transferable associate's degree also, so that if, the economy, family circumstances, your body, like happened to my dad when his knees blew out and he couldn't crawl around in the belly of a ship anymore, when you've been doing that hard labor and then need to change to grow or pivot in your career, now the education and training that you have, those thousands of hours on the job, will transfer so that you don't have to start at the beginning of a degree if that's the path that you choose. We've been working on trying to really value the experience of individuals, to remove those barriers to opportunity. And it was, hard work to convince our four-year institutions that, apprenticeship deserved a transferable associate's degree. It was hard work to figure out the details, but building a coalition of folks who really value student opportunity and could bring their stories to the table to talk about the complexities. How would we make it work for everyone? That was so powerful. I think that bringing a coalition to your work is what leads to the best, most values-based policy. And, when we pass postpartum Medicaid expansion. We had to do it 2 times. The first time the governor vetoed it in the COVID year when we were doing budget cuts. So it came back again. And the second time, our coalition grew to include more BIPOC birth workers, more birthing people, so that it wasn't just lobbyists in the healthcare industry who were leading the charge. It was, individuals who experienced the challenges of accessing postpartum healthcare, who experienced postpartum mood disorder and depression, who had health complications or who helped clients through them, and it made a big difference. That storytelling, that individual experience translated into stronger policy. And that's how I try to ground my work in values, to be listening to people who experience barriers and then brainstorming with them about what the solutions are. It makes our policy more actionable and I think better supported by community.
I love postpartum Medicaid expansion. It is so good. We failed to get it over here in New Hampshire by on the final step before we got to the governor. So but I think what you mentioned about coalition building, so important. Once you're in office, working with folks internally and externally, so you can uplift those voices. So clutch. Senator Maxmin, how about you?
Yeah, I've been really intentional just to sponsor bills and dedicate time to bills that came directly out of conversations that I had while door knocking, or issues that folks were facing, from just the small fixes just to the larger issues. And that's been really important to me, to make sure I'm representing my community and my interests. I also have found that, serving in a way that represents the values that I ran on often means going against some of the established structures that are kind of set up for you when you get there. And I think that's been, I guess I find it pretty, it's not easy, but it's easier to kind of represent your community because you know where your community is at and what they need, and you're in touch with folks. But I think that transition of, okay, I'm not going to vote party line all the time, or I'm going to go work with the Republicans on this bill, and how those values manifest themselves in office, I think has been a bit of a trickier road, at least for me.
I will say not everything is a partisan issue. It's another fun thing you learn once you get elected. So no, that's very real. Senator Rausch, how about yourself?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that sentiment about, working with sometimes coalitions that you might not anticipate. In terms of having the values that lead my legislative priorities, I just kind of took the platform that I ran on, and as it's grown and developed over the years, and got to work on it. And that certainly includes writing bills. My best suggestion for writing bills is to write good bills. If you write a run-on sentence for 9 pages, that bill is not going anywhere. I have seen that bill several times in multiple different iterations. Be thoughtful about how you write it. Consult with people who are good legislative drafters, and, write strong bills. It will drastically increase the likelihood of success and advancement for those policies. And also get creative in how to move things. It's not actually just about writing bills. It's also about amendments to legislation that's moving, or budget, components, or all sorts of different ways that we advance policy. And so you have to kind of get creative and be aware of what's going on kind of in all different facets of legislative work. Pretty much at all times. So it's a big undertaking, but you can do it. Couldn't agree more about building coalitions. Nothing ever happens when you're doing it by yourself. You go a lot farther in coalition, and listening to people on the ground with lived experiences that are impacted by the policy change that you're trying to achieve. And in fact, those lived experiences are the things that should be dictating what the policy change will be. Recently I last year, actually, in the sort of peak of the COVID pandemic, we were hearing a lot about the struggles that young people were going through. And I said to my staff, let's create space just to listen to youngsters. It's something that politicians don't generally do because this segment of the population is too young to vote. And I said, I don't care. We got to listen to the young people. And so we did, and we developed and secured some really important funding and policy advancements because of it, because of just creating space to listen to folks whose voices are marginalized.
Awesome. Well, I would love to keep this conversation going because all y'all are so impressive and y'all are doing amazing work in each individual state. But unfortunately, we have come up on time. So I just want to say on behalf of Run for Something Action Fund, it is just, we are honored that y'all are a part of our network, that y'all were elected, and that y'all are doing the actual work of representing your constituents, and actually going out and putting in really good legislation that is like literally, that is my favorite part. Like, I'll tell y'all, we look at, like, we get clips of all of y'all and we see some of the work that y'all are doing in elected office, and I'm just like, y'all are literally changing our country, and there's so much attention being paid on the federal level, but on the state level, so much is happening because of legislators like y'all. So I want to say thank you to our entire panel, and y'all have been wonderful and so inspiring. With that, I think y'all will transition to y'all's next panel, but appreciate y'all, and hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.